I was doing a panel on black men's mental health with Howard University a few years ago. And all men on the panel, some psychologists and maybe a social worker, and the moderator was a psychologist, I believe. And we're talking, and a lot of our conversation was about relationships. So, as each of the panelists and myself spoke to relationships, we talked about relationships and we kind of assumed straight relationships. We talked about men dealing with women. So, the moderator says most of this conversation has been from a heteronormative perspective. Uh, what about, uh, gay relationships? Like, what about somebody like me and my husband? And to that point, I didn't know that he was gay, but he volunteered that to us, right? So from my perspective, the other two brothers on the panel looked nervous, like they didn't want to respond to that question. And I'm just letting you in on this, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum. There are a lot of guys who don't want to share their views on sexuality because they feel as if though I have to say this, and if I don't say this, then I'm going to get shunned. Because what's been presented to us by more progressive allies and people is that you have to fully affirm everything, and if you don't, you're hateful. That I would say is problematic. There's no nuance there at all. And here's another example of the lack of nuance that kind of scares guys into just not wanting to talk. And this is why I think the other two panelists were like, I don't know what to say. Because you're just going to get offended and go off on me. And it literally happened. So I have delved into these discussions already. So I don't think I fall in the bucket of the stereotypical straight male that is going to say something rude, ignorant, or offensive about gay people. Having had clients from a variety of backgrounds, friends from a variety of backgrounds, and just a desire to learn, I'm not going to be the person that just says what I know a lot of other straight men would say is, I don't mess with that gay stuff. That is how a lot of us were taught. That is the message within hip hop culture. But I am not the person that's going to engage the topic in that way. So I felt comfortable, like, well, you know what? They're scared to talk about it. Let's go there. So I decided to hopefully say something that surprised even the moderator. So I was thinking, and by being educated. And something I wanted to point out is I said, yeah, I do think we need to have, in response to his question, I said we do need to have conversations about sexuality as well if we're talking about black men's mental health, because there are some ways as a community that us, as straight men, how we've dealt with gay black men has been bad for their mental health, particularly because there are some men who's in their friend group, they hang out with drug dealers, murderers, gang members. They hang out with, quote, immoral people, but then will disown a man if they find out he's gay. We can't mess with you no more. We can't be friends with you. I want to avoid being in the same room with you, being seen with you. All these things happen. And I believe my words were because of who someone chooses to sleep with. We have to deal with the inconsistency where you hang out with drug dealers and killers, but you have a problem being around a gay man because of who he chooses to sleep with. I thought that was a very nuanced take and something that I've said in other places that has helped brothers to open their minds and realize, yeah, someone's sexuality is not a crime, whereas your homeboy who caught bodies, it is. So, what's really driving you? Is it how is morality driving you in this instance? Um, are you being inconsistent in how you apply your morality? So his response, the moderator, was he got upset and he kind of jumped like this and started kind of jerking his neck. And he said, my sexuality is not a choice. And I know that for many advocates for the LGBTQI community, they have said that sexuality is not a choice and spoken as if that is a definitive response. And again, if you don't agree, you're hateful. And that is part of the problem and part of the erasure. Because again, uh, that doesn't allow straight men who typically have this view that a lot of people believe that it is a choice in some instances. Uh, I would just go further to say that I'm aware of the people who actually chose to pursue a different sexuality. They were straight at one point and then they changed. Am I saying that people aren't born that way? No. I imagine that both are possible. But you kind of have these domineering LGBTQI allies who are just taking all the air out of the room and saying, "Shut up. We're all born this way. It's not a choice." And the thing is, even on the panel, I wasn't even getting at someone's sexuality being a choice. I was saying that who someone chooses to sleep with, assuming the sex is consensual, you made a choice to have sex with that person. So I was saying that it's inconsistent to not associate with someone for who they choose to sleep with, willing consensual sex, but then be running around the street with drug dealers and killers. He flipped it to this conversation and this agenda and this narrative that all gay people are born this way. And that's simply not true. And I say that based off of the accounts of the gay people that I know who say, well, yeah, I mean, like, you probably know some lesbians who had a lot of negative experiences with men cheating on them, who then one day said, you know what, I'm not dealing with men anymore. They made a choice. So again, we're not leaving room for nuanced conversation if one person gets to speak on behalf of the whole community and then mute everybody else. So how can we meet in the middle to have these conversations so it's not perceived to be erasure?
We ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me going